I want to read one thing to you. Well, I want to tell you about something and read the other. God and His plan, sometimes we don't fully understand it, and sometimes we do. There was a man born back in the 1800s. And if you look at his life, for the first 50-some years of his life, he was a miserable loser. In today's standards, he would be considered that. He had a business that went bankrupt. He was elected to Congress. He was defeated, run for Congress in his 20s. He was elected to Congress in his 30s. He was defeated for his congressional run in his 40s. And he started a business and went bankrupt again. He was also an attorney. That was the only thing that really sustained him during his life. Kept him monetarily, kept him up to date. It was the only thing. He knew that God had a plan for him. He knew that he was to serve people. He knew it in his heart. And God, it seemed like, was closing the door on him at every chance. But he never gave up. He understood God's will. And in 1860, he was elected president. When you look at Abraham Lincoln's life, before he was elected president, and today's standards, he would be considered a loser. He couldn't do anything right. But he always said he understood God's plan for him. He knew it was to serve people, and he understood that. I think a lot of times we give up too quick in life. That we think that things aren't going right, God's will, this can't be His will for me. Why would He let me suffer through these tragedies? Why would He let me go through this? It made Abraham Lincoln a better man. Sometimes you're going through something right now and dealing with in your life that tomorrow you're going to look back and say, I understand why I'm out. I see God's will. I want to read something to you right now. This is from a book that my wife has been reading, but I do steal it from her every now and then and read a little bit in it. Most of you know this person. This is from his personal diary. He wanted to be a preacher. And for about 6 weeks, a little over a month, this is his first 10 sermons. Sunday, a.m., May 5th. Preached at St. Anne's. Was asked not to come back anymore. Sunday, p.m., May 5th. Preached at St. John's. Deacon said, get out and stay, Eric. Sunday, a.m., May 12th. Preached to St. Jude's. Can't go back there either. Sunday, p.m., May 12th. Preached to St. George's. Kicked out again. Sunday, a.m., May 19th. Preached at St. somebody else's. Deacons called special meeting and said I couldn't stay anymore. Sunday, p.m., May 19th. Preached on the street. Kicked off the street. Now, that started May 5th, morning and night, Sunday, until May 19th. Preached on the street, kicked off the street again. Sunday, a.m. Preached at a meadow, chased out of the meadow by a bull turned loose during the services. All right, this is June 2nd. Preached on the edge of town, kicked off the highway. After that, I think most people that have been preaching would want to give up. This is not God's will for me. This cannot be God's will for me. After what I've just been through, I've been kicked out of every church in town. I've been chased by a bull in the meadow and run off the streets. That night, Sunday, June 2nd, afternoon service, preached in a pasture. 10,000 people came to him. John Wesley. Many of you have heard of him, a preacher. But after them first 9 services, I would have said to God, I'd give him my best. That's all I got. I can't do any more. But he knew God's will. He understood that it was God's will. He understood being kicked out of a church. Being kicked out of 4 churches, being run off a highway, being chased by a bull in the service, intentionally turned loose to run him off. That's dedication. That's understanding that God has a plan for you. That's understanding God's will. So often we take God's will for granted. Our feelings get in the way and we interrupt. Satan keeps sneaking around that corner and planting something on us and touching us. He continuously wants us to fail. And he will exploit any weakness in your faith or in your Christian life, any he can find. But knowing his will is a difficult thing. And like I say, sometimes it takes years to understand his will. Sometimes it takes quite a while. Sometimes you may never know whether it was God's will. I think you'll know at the end of time when you see him. But you may spend 20 years on this earth, 30 years, 40 years doing something, and you're not sure whether it was God's will or not. The only way to know for sure, and the only way to think you know, is to keep your nose in the book. Study the truth. Study the Word. And if you feel God is tugging at you, don't ignore it.